Hey everyone, and welcome to Apocalyptic Fighter by Jump Games, the 2D top-down post-apocalyptic bandit-killing action game. Apocalyptic Fighter is set in the year 2070 after nuclear war has devastated most of the world. A scientist has come up with a system to create portals. It's the player's job to collect the parts required to build this system so that way they can get all the civilians off-planet to a new colony. The game is played from a top-down perspective, with the player facing towards the direction of the mouse, moving with WASD and the D-pad, and shooting with the mouse buttons or spacebar. We'll also have controller support, with the dual sticks used for movement and looking, and the triggers used for firing. The game is objective-based, with player having to move from point to point on a linear-style map, fending off waves of enemies when they reach an objective, or small groups of enemies between objectives. The game is also multiplayer, with up to 4 players being able to play in the one game at the same time. This of course increases difficulty with more enemies or stronger enemies being spawned more frequently. The players will also have access to a wide variety of weapons, from pistols to shotguns, assault rifles and sniper rifles, as well as a series of throwable weapons such as grenades or Molotov cocktails. Finally, the game will also feature a leaderboard system for each mission. Players get points for killing enemies and multipliers for killing enemies in quick succession. Here we have some screenshots of other games in the same genre. The point of this is to show how our game could possibly look once it's finished. Here we have an example of the gameplay screen. As you can see, it has the health, score, multipliers, controls, the health bar of the boss, as well as the character and where he is aiming. Here we have an example of the player's weapon. We originally came up with the idea of the weapon being malleable. It can be changed between different types, like shotgun to assault rifle to sniper rifle. The weapon can also accommodate a variety of ammunition types. These are picked up during the mission. The other idea we had was simply have each weapon as separate. Whether we do this or the former will have no real impact on gameplay, however. More weapon types become unlocked as you complete more missions. The enemies in Apocalyptic Fighter are all bandits. We currently have 4 types of bandits: the weaker basic bandit with simple pistol and throwing knives, the horde bandit with a rifle or shotgun, the armored bandit which is much heavier, melee based and has a sniper rifle, and the mini-boss bandit with explosives and miniguns. The amount of each type of bandit spawned is balanced upon their type, with weaker bandits being spawned more often and the stronger, harder to kill ones being spawned less. There are 4 playable characters in Apocalyptic Fighter. The first playable character is Sydney. He is a reasonably tanky and strong character, but has less speed than the other playable characters. The second character is Melbourne. She is reasonably tanky, but not as much in comparison to Sydney. However, she does have slightly more mobility. The third character is Brisbane. She is the fastest character in the game. However, she does suffer for it, with low strength and health. Her speed, however, does allow her to move in and out of combat effectively. The fourth and final character, Canberra, has very balanced stats, comparable to that of Melbourne, except that he has more speed and less strength. Here we have some concept designs done by our artists. The 2 pictures on the left are cover arts, and the picture on the right is a games poster. And here we have an example of the environmental concept art. This picture in particular was featured on one of the cover arts. Here we come to our project timeline. Our project is split into 3 different sections: Alpha, Beta, and Gold, with 9 months for the first 2 and 6 months for the latter period. The Alpha stage is the busiest part of development, where we will be building the entire game from the ground up. This stage is split into sections, with each section consisting of a month of feature development and bug testing. The first 3 months will consist of getting the core mechanics online, such as movement, shooting, and networking. For this time we'll be using a dummy level like the one seen below, for testing the mechanics in a stable environment. The next 3 months will consist of adding more content into the game, such as enemies, weapons, better sprites, the high score system, as well as us finishing up the first working level in the game. The last 3 months will consist of adding the last of the content to the game. This is usually all the levels and the user interface. The picture we have below here is from Alien Swamp. It shows an example of how we can set up our maps. As you can see by the red lines, it is a linear path, with objectives scattered out across this path. The beta stage we plan on starting in April 2015. During this stage, we fix up any bugs that have come out after we've released our alpha version, or adding any extra content that we couldn't get finished during alpha stage. The gold stage takes place after the release of the game. We're planning on releasing the game between December 2015 and January 2016. The next 6 months will be spent patching the game for any issues that came out after the game's release, as well as possibly adding DLC or new content patches. Our team also did some market research to find out what was going on in the industry at the moment, what kind of games were people playing, and what was working and what wasn't. We collected information from the Entertainment Software Association. Their website is www.theesa.com. Through the research that the ESA had done, we learned that the market for online games, for action and strategy games, were increasing each year, so more people were buying more action and strategy games than other genres. We also learned that 71% of all gamers are over the age of 18, and 52% of all gamers are male. This explains why we're marketing our game at males between the age of 15 to 30. We also found that most successful action games are either played from a first-person, a top-down, or a third-person view. This is the reason why we decided to go with a top-down view. Lastly, we researched other games that were of similar style or function. We analysed exactly what they did right and wrong, so that way we would be able to build upon what they did correctly whilst avoiding what they had done wrong. Now I'd like to introduce you to the members of Jump Games Studios. We have 2 artists, Javier and Brent, 3 designers, Michael, Yamal, and Esther, and 1 programmer, Mitchell. The software that our team members will be using varies depending on their profession, but our programmers and designers will majorly be using Unity, whereas our artists will be using Maya or 3ds Max for their modeling, and Photoshop or Illustrator for any 2D or texturing. Here comes the cost of production. This was the amount of money that was going to cost to actually build the game. We calculated the costs by multiplying the cost of living for each team member times the amount of time needed to work on the project, plus any extra costs such as software or assets that we would need to buy. We calculated that the estimated minimum cost would be about $91,000, and the average estimated costs at about $129,000. To cap things off, we learned that people enjoy playing games with their friends. We also learned that people enjoy playing post-apocalyptic bandit-killing action games. So, we decided we'd put the two together and make a post-apocalyptic bandit-killing action game that you can play with your friends. With simple, easy-to-learn controls, a reasonable balance between difficulty and fun, and a score system to encourage some competitive play between friends, we're confident that the game will be a great success.